Hello, welcome to Gurukul's CAT 100 series, a series that's designed specifically to take you from your study room to the corporate boardroom. I am Prady Sharma and this is Verbal Mastery with Prady.
Welcome back to another video. Now, this is today's passage. In case you want to attempt this as a test, all you've got to do is go on to www.thegurukul.org.in, and over there you'll find a login button which will take you to the sign up page since you're a new user. Well, over there you can find our 100 days to CAT test series. Now guys, please remember this is a completely free test series for all of you so that you can practice your quant, LRDI and verbal ability every single day until your CAT 2025 and crack it in your first attempt. Now without any further ado, let's get into the passage and the questions for today. This is your first paragraph. Please read this, jot down all the main points, and then we'll go into the second paragraph. You may pause the video over here. This is your second paragraph. Please read this, jot down all the main points, and then we'll go into the third paragraph. You may pause the video over here. This is your third paragraph and the last paragraph of the passage. Please read this, jot down all the main points, and then we'll go into the questions. You may pause the video over here. This is question number 1. Please answer this question. This is question number 2. Please answer this question. This is question number 3. Please answer this question. Now this is the last question of this passage. Please answer this question. If you've answered all these questions, please tell us in the comments below what your answers were so that we could cross-verify it after the passage and question explanations. Now without any further delay, let's move into the passage and question explanations. The passage says, in economics, the term speculative bubble refers to a large upward move in asset prices, driven not by the asset's fundamentals, that's by the earnings derivable from the asset, but rather by mere speculation that someone else will be willing to pay a higher price for it. So basically, what's he talking about? He's talking about a speculative bubble, a concept called a speculative bubble. Now, what is a speculative bubble? Let's say that you have a piece of chocolate. Now, this piece of chocolate is actually 10 rupees. Okay, but the price of this chocolate will increase 10 times to 100 rupees, not because this chocolate became tasty or any other reason, okay, nothing of that sort, just because you think that there would be someone who might pay this price for it. You are just thinking, this is a figment of your imagination. Okay, so the price increase is then followed by a dramatic decline in price due to a loss in confidence that the price will continue to rise and the bubble is said to have burst. So this confidence that you'll have that it will come for 100 rupees or that someone will buy that for 100 rupees. After a few days, obviously, when no one buys it, you will understand that, okay, I was thinking wrong. So your confidence will go down and you will slowly sell this off for 10 rupees. So this crash in the price, okay, is what they've called as the bubble burst. So according to Charles Mackay's classic 19th century account, the 17th century Dutch tulip market provides an example of speculative bubble. So this guy called as Mackay says that 17th century tulip market was an example of this kind of a bubble. Now the first question that should come to your mind is, why does he say so? What makes him actually say so? But the economist Peter Garber challenges Mackay's view. So there's another guy called as Garber. Okay, he's challenging Mackay's view. Okay, arguing that there's no evidence that the Dutch tulip market really involved a speculative bubble. So he's saying that there's no evidence as such for me calling this as a speculative bubble. By the 17th century, Netherlands had become a center of cultivation and development of new tulip varieties, and a market had developed in which rare varieties of bulbs sold at higher prices. So new bulbs or new types of tulips, okay, new varieties of tulips, and bulb is nothing but if you're looking at a flower, okay, the top part of the flower will be there, no, with the petals and all. So this part is the bulb. So there were different types of varieties of tulips, and Netherlands became one of the hubs for tulip cultivation. Okay. So these bulbs of different varieties, they were sold at very high prices. That's what he's saying. For example, Semper Augustus bulb, so that's one type of the tulip, was sold in 1625 for an amount of gold worth about US $11,000 in 1999's value. So in 1999 value, how much gold you would get for almost $11,000, that much gold was required to buy that tulip. So common bulb varieties on the other hand was sold for low prices. So if that bulb is very exquisite, then it was sold at a higher price, and the other common bulbs were sold at a lower price. Okay, so let's move forward in the second paragraph. According to Mackay, by 1636, rapid price rises attracted speculators, and prices of many varieties surged upward from November 1636 to January 1637. So from this period, okay, from November 1636 to January 1637, according to Mackay, okay, there were a lot of speculators, and because of those speculators, prices of many varieties surged. Surged means increased. Okay, so Mackay further states that in February 1637, prices suddenly collapsed. Bulbs could not be sold at 10% of their peak value. So not even 10% of the peak value. That means whatever was the highest value that they were being sold at in this duration, they were not even being able to sold that at that cost by February of 1637. By 1739, the price of all the most prized kind of bulbs had fallen to not more than 1/200th of 1% of Semper Augustus peak price. So very less it has become. All this technical numbers and all you don't need to remember. You can just think that, okay, by this time, okay, by 1739, they have fallen to a very, very dramatically low. Garber acknowledges that the bulb prices increased dramatically from 1636 to 1637. So Garber is also saying, yes, dude, Mackay, you're right. They increased. Now, what is his reasoning? And eventually reached very low. So all that he agrees. This whole thing he agrees. But the reasoning is what he is going to challenge probably. But he argues that this episode should not be described as speculative bubble, for the increase and eventual decline in bulb prices can be explained in terms of the fundamentals. So Garber thinks that the asset value fundamentals kind of explain why the prices rose or why the prices have come down. Garber argues that a standard pricing pattern occurs for new varieties of flowers. When a particularly priced variety is developed, its original bulb sells for very high price. So when a new variety of flower comes, then their prices are always higher. Okay, the first original bulbs that are coming out, they are very nice and they're very novel, so that attracts the higher price. Okay, thus the dramatic rise in the price of some original tulip bulbs could have resulted as tulips in general and certain varieties in particular became fashionable. So certain of these flowers were very fashionable, that is why they had such a higher price. However, as the priced bulbs became more readily available through the reproduction from the original bulb, the price falls rapidly. After less than 30 years, bulbs sell at reproduction cost. So basically what happened, first there was an original bulb, a new bulb, okay, and no one had seen such a pretty bulb before, alright. And because of that, these prices, okay, increased a lot, okay. Let's say this is the bulb, okay, very exquisite bulb this is, okay. But over the next 30 years, lot of these kind of bulbs started coming up, okay. Lot of these kind of bulbs started coming up, and it was a common thing. It was not rare anymore, because of which the prices fell. They're only paying the reproduction cost, okay. So what is he saying? But this does not mean that the high price of original bulbs are irrational. For earnings derivable from the millions of bulbs descendant from the original bulbs can be very high. So what's he saying? The original bulb's price is not irrational. At that time it was correct only. Why? Because when that bulb is giving rise to millions of bulbs, if I'm selling all these millions of bulbs, it could come up to the same amount as the original bulb, even if each individual descendant bulb commands a very low price. Given that the original bulb can generate a reasonable return on investment, even if the price of descendant bulbs decreases dramatically, a rapid rise and eventual fall of tulip bulb prices need not indicate a speculative bubble. So what's he saying? All these descendant bulbs, that the bulbs or the tulips, the flowers which came from the original bulb, even if they're sold at very less price, since the quantity is so huge, they can together generate enough income that you get a good return on investment, which is why you should not think of this price fall as a speculative bubble. Now this entire story was about Garber versus Mackay with regards to the speculative bubble, specifically about the tulips market, correct? Let's check out the questions now. The first question says, which one of the following most accurately expresses the main point of the passage? A. The 17th century Dutch tulip market is widely but mistakenly believed by economists to provide an example of speculative bubble. First of all, widely, I know that there was one person, Mackay, who thought it was a speculative bubble. I don't know about anyone else who's thinking about this as a speculative bubble. No. So how is it widely and mistakenly believed? Right. So this is a too broad of an answer, we can remove. Mackay did not accurately assess the earnings that could be derived from rare and expensive 17th century Dutch tulip bulbs. Now see, did he assess, did he not assess? I don't know, but he thought it was speculation and not the price of the asset in itself. So obviously this does not reflect what the author was trying to say. A speculative bubble occurs whenever the price of an asset increases substantially, followed by a rapid dramatic decline. That's great. You've told what the speculative bubble means, but the problem over this is that you're not mentioning anywhere about the speculation that's involved. And to be very honest, the main idea of the passage is not to discuss speculative bubble. It's to discuss whether the Dutch tulip industry was a case of the speculative bubble or not. So this is too broad. Again, we can just take off. Garber argues that Mackay's classic account of the 17th century Dutch tulip market as speculative bubble is not supported by the evidence. So this is exactly what Garber versus Mackay are talking with respect to the Dutch tulip speculative bubble. So this should be a very good answer, and this will be our final answer. The correct answer will be D. Now let's go to the second question. Given Garber's account of the 17th century Dutch tulip market, which one of the following is most analogous? Now here the meaning of analogous is similar. Right, most analogous to someone who bought a tulip bulb of a certain variety in the market at very high price, only to sell that bulb of a variety at much lower price. So we have to see this situation. Where is the situation being reflected? Now if you look at A, someone who after learning that many others have withdrawn their applications for a particular job, applied for the job in the belief that there would be less competition for it. Now what is he saying over here? There are 100 applications. Okay, out of these 100, maybe 90 people took off their applications and 10 people are left. So clearly this fellow is applying thinking that out of these 10 people his chances would be higher. That means he would get a profit, right? So he's not selling at a loss. So this is not exactly the same as what is happening over here. So this will not be our answer. An art dealer who after paying a very high price for a new painting sells it at a very low price because it is now considered to be an inferior work. Now this part of inferior work again deals with speculation. It does not really deal with a lot of things being present, and which is why you are losing out on the money or you're selling it for lower. So although he's making a loss, this is not an accurate representation. Someone who after buying a box of rare motorcycle parts at very high price is forced to sell them at very much lower price because of the sudden availability of cheap substitute parts. Great. Now here a third point is being added up where cheap substitute parts are available, but this in itself is not decreasing the cost of each of the parts. It's not decreasing the cost of each of the motorcycle parts, correct? So this is because other parts are available, your parts are not going. So that has nothing to do with the example that we are talking about. So I'm going to remove this. Now, a publisher who pays an extremely high price for a new novel only to sell copies at a price affordable to nearly everyone. Now this makes sense because see, the original is valued very highly. Now when you are taking the copy of that same book, the value is reducing. Alright, so this is same as what has happened in the passage and what's been asked in the question. So this should be our correct answer. So the correct answer will be D. Now let's go to the third question. The passage most strongly supports the inference that Garber would agree with which one of the following statements. Now what was Garber's assertion? The Garber's assertion was that Mackay is talking about a speculative bubble, but that Dutch tulip industry is not a speculative bubble. That was Garber's assertion, right? So if speculative bubble occurs at all, they occur very rarely. Now how rarely or how frequently they occur has not been with us in the passage. So Garber cannot assert that. So I'm going to remove this. Many of the owners of the high-priced original tulip bulbs could have expected to at least recoup their original investments from sales of the many bulbs propagated from the original bulbs. Now see, Garber was actually saying that when these descendant bulbs come, okay, there are so many of it that you would get a return on investment, no? So he could definitely agree that they'll at least get back their original investment. So this could be an answer. Now look at C. If there's not a speculative bubble in the market, then the level of price in the market is not irrational. Now, the level of price in the market being irrational or not, and the presence of speculative bubble, the correlation between them has not been spoken about in the passage very clearly. So we can remove this. Most people who invested in Dutch tulip bulbs in the 17th century were generally rational in all their investments. Now, how can we talk about the rationality of the investors in different investments compared with what they've invested or why they've invested in the tulips? No one, not Garber, no one in the passage is mentioning anything as such. So definitely D won't be our correct answer. The best possible answer would be B. Now let's go to the last question of this passage, guys. Now let's go to the last question of this passage, guys. The passage states that Mackay claimed which one of the following. So what did Mackay actually claim amongst these? The rapid rise in Dutch tulip bulbs was not due to fashionability of the flowers they produced. Now, see, this fashionability of flowers and all, that was claimed by Garber, and he said that they were fashionable, so they were high prices. This is not about Mackay at all, so we can remove this. The price of certain varieties of Dutch tulip bulbs during the 17th century were, at least for a time, determined by speculation. Yes, Mackay told that this whole price game was because of speculation, right? So this could be what Mackay has asserted. The Netherlands was the only center of cultivation and development of new tulip varieties in the 17th century. Where did he say that it was the only center? He said that it was like a hub and all, but nowhere did he say that it was the only center, right? So this is an extreme answer. So we have to remove C. D. The very high prices of bulbs in the 17th century Dutch tulip market were not irrational. Again, Mackay does not say that they were irrational or they were not irrational. In fact, Mackay does not comment on the irrationality of the prices. Okay, it was Garber who says that it was irrational. So, I can remove this from the answers. So, the best possible answer would be B. And that will be our correct answer. Now, if you watch this video till end, please drop a like because that motivates us a lot to bring these kind of videos for you every single day. Share this video with one of your friends who's preparing for CAT 2025 but is confused what are the right resources and where to get the right guidance. If there are any doubts that you guys have in the passages or in the questions, please drop that down in the comment box so that we'll reply to you as soon as possible. There are other videos of Quant and LRDI along with this in this series. Please go check them out and I'll see you in the next video.
Hope you enjoyed learning from today's session.
This series is designed to help you with your CAT preparation and practice daily. We are with you in this journey.
To watch the next video, click here. And to watch Gurukul's CAT 100 series, study room to boardroom, the entire playlist, click here.
If you learned from today's session, like, share, and subscribe.